One of the best parts about being an entrepreneur is being able to own your own outcome, creating your own success, or not having to worry about losing your income because of someone else's choices. For today's episode, we have a rebroadcast of our most popular episode from 2022, episode 138 with Matt Russell. Matt is a successful coach, speaker, and entrepreneur. Would you rather be accepted or respected? When do we lose our childlike fearlessness of being wrong or asking stupid questions? Why do we lose it, and why is it important to keep asking those stupid questions? The key to freedom is knowledge, so pass this episode along to your friends, family, and colleagues in order to help them gain a little bit more freedom. Quick reminder to rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. You can also find the full videos of the show on our YouTube page, and if you learned something from Matt, Otis, or me in our conversation, make sure to share the episode with someone else so they can learn it too. The best way to support our show is to share your favorite episodes with the rest of your tribe. This episode is brought to you by Tribe and Purpose. That transition from college to that first career is a difficult one, and it's even harder when you lose your sense of identity. If you're an athlete who just hung up the cleats, it's hard to go from being a rugby player to being Joe in accounting. We created Next is Best to help retired college athletes use their skills to create an impact to their entrepreneurship. Next is Best by Know Your Tribe will help to smoothen that rough transition by helping you establish a clear sense of purpose, an actionable path to success, and the tools you need to manage your life. Your 20s are a confusing and chaotic time. Next is Best gives you the tools you need to make sense of the chaos and make this next chapter of your life the best one yet. You can learn more about Next is Best by Know Your Tribe at findyourpurpose.coach. Now here's Cam and Otis with the show.
Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis show. And I get to do my favorite intro phrase. And that is one of my good friends is joining us on the show, Matt Russell. Matt, man, good to have you here, brother.
Man, I appreciate the opportunity.
Coming all the way from Georgia, right outside of hot Atlanta, which ain't so hot this, believe it or not, right now. But Matt, man, I just want to know, I'm going to kick us off with the easy question. What the heck made you start being an entrepreneur? What's that catalyst? I was going to say start your own business, but I think you're bigger than that because I'm not going to even try and explain it because I want you to explain it and share with us how you got to this. I want to do this.
Well, I hope you got some time because this is kind of a lengthy story. But to kind of summarize it, I grew up the son of an electrician. My dad worked for General Motors here in Doraville for many years after coming out of the Army. And when he came out of the Army and going to General Motors, he worked there up until the time where they had the massive layoffs. And because he was a licensed electrician, he went and opened his own electrical business. So he was his own boss. He was the first entrepreneur I got to see, which was very, very good. But I never really put a mindset behind it. I just saw my dad work hard. Fast forward, I got to, the point of my age where I was working for companies from, Pizza Hut, Domino's, your high school jobs, the retail shops. And I realized for me, my mindset is you can work for people if you have the same mindset, you have the same goals, you have the same visions. But fundamentally, when those things disalign, it makes it hard to create value and a consistency. So over the last several years, I've had the fortunate pleasure of being able to open two of my own companies, still growing, still have lots of room for, improvement. But now I have anything that's coming forward. It allows me the fundamental mindset to bring customer service first and be that entrepreneur. So looking at my dad's history, great, but not wanting to be big box retail and have that success. All right.
Yeah,
I think kind of where it's at. I know it's kind of an abrupt summary, but that's where it lies.
I just got to share something. Hold on, Cam, because Rob Angel, Game Changer, Pictionary dude, read that book and you're going to go, dang, that's me. Because Rob had a very similar thing with his dad getting laid off, except his dad wasn't a licensed electrician. So he couldn't start his own business that way. And Rob grew up with his attitude of, I'm never going to work for anybody because I don't want to get laid off. and that same sort of thing. So that's kind of it's neat how y'all's stories. Again, I just tossed that out there. If you haven't read it, it's a pretty cool story.
All right.
Doesn't have any pictures in it, which was very, very disappointing on my part.
It's gonna be hard for me.
It's the story of Pictionary, and it's like, dude, where are the pictures?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Cam. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Well, what I thought was super interesting there, because this is a similar type of feeling I had, as my kind of journey becoming an entrepreneur. It wasn't necessarily this like desire to start my own company or anything like that. It was more like owning the outcome. And it seems like you kind of have a similar thing there, Matt, where you were talking about, being able to provide the best service to your customers and be able to like prioritize that and make that your priority, and how that kind of creates that natural entrepreneurial spirit where it's like, if you're just there to solve problems and to serve your customer, then you kind of already have the entrepreneur thing going, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah. Well, it's scary. I think as a father of two, not having control of your future because of someone else's mood swings or the current environments that we've seen and how it can change so rapidly, especially over the last 2.5 years. I'd rather be in control of my outcome based on my production than my outcome based on someone else's perception of my production. And that for me is something that I think an entrepreneur has to, grasp. And, and it's a daily struggle, but it is something that we grasp, and it gives us a sense of freedom and control. But with any freedom and control, you are the captain of your ship. And if you don't know how to do certain things, you could put yourself in some trouble pretty quickly.
I was just sitting there thinking, it's like, oh, well, everybody should be an entrepreneur. What if everybody was an entrepreneur? It's an interesting world. Think about that. I have a client a couple of years ago who asked me that question. How do I get an entrepreneurial spirit in my team? Because truthfully, to be an entrepreneur, to have that entrepreneurial spirit, you don't have to start your own business. It's an attitude, an attitude of creating, of solving, of owning, going back to my favorite fallback, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And fulfilling those needs that we have in life. So you mentioned that freedom, and, with freedom, there is a price to pay. Whether we're talking about the good old U.S. of A, American freedom, or the freedom of an entrepreneur, tell us how you're managing that freedom that you have, Matt.
Well, within the freedom, it's making sure that I'm always putting myself in a state to learn and gain perspectives. In gaining the perspectives, I like to tell people it gives me not the expert level knowledge that many people have, but it gives me a conversational bit of knowledge. So as an entrepreneur and in my business of assimilating small companies, I may not be the expert in your entity or in your business, but I have an expertise in assimilating companies and creating contracts that can hopefully help you get better return as an owner operator. But also in these things, in talking with small businesses, I talk with CPAs, I talk with lawyers. So I'm constantly in the state of learning. I'm reading books, reading articles that allow me to bring more value to people and inherently bring more return from them, which is giving my perspective, my freedoms, a bigger breath to have momentum behind it. It's the winds of change, and hopefully I can keep those winds moving in the right direction, in a way that I see fit. And that's that freedom that I find. But how to gain more freedom, you have to gain more knowledge and gain a better network to allow your weaknesses. You can now share those weaknesses or have someone else's strengths be your strengths. And in freedom, you have to own your weaknesses. If you try to say, I can do everything, that's where you're going to fail the hardest, and it's going to be the most difficult to overcome. So, and the knowledge and self-awareness of that is fundamental for me.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting thing there of, not having such a big ego, like you can learn everything out there, but I love the way you put it of conversational level of knowledge, because that's what I found in a few of my different companies, that's like the functional level where you want to be at, because you need to have an understanding that's good enough so you can ask good questions, not just stupid questions, but not wasting your time diving in on something that you already have an expert for. And my favorite example of this is one of my first jobs working with Cobra Valley Indoor Farms. And we were talking, one of the guys we were working with is great with plants and had all these grow systems. He'd been working for years and years on indoor farms. And I had an ag biz degree. I'd been working around plants and stuff, but I didn't actually know that much on like the plant science or anything there. But I learned just enough to be able to go in and get, hey, man.
Young whippersnapper college kid coming in there with your degree, acting like you knew how to grow a plant. That's what you were. Let me.
I didn't act like lettuce. I knew. I accepted that I did not know, but I asked questions. That's the big takeaway. And you come in and I would say things, like, hey, man, so why don't we build the system up this way? Why are we building it there? Why can't we put more lettuce into that system? Space it out differently, change the water flow, all these different things. But the reason I bring that up is because it takes that conversational level of knowledge, like you mentioned, Matt, because you can't be coming in like a complete dumbass, because then no one's going to want to work with you. But goes back to one of my favorite things to talk about is creativity and innovation. That if you, or that a lot of creativity comes from people who are new in their fields or people who've been working in a really, really long time. And so if you develop this conversational level of knowledge and then you're willing to go in, maybe feel a little stupid asking some questions, that's where you can find those nuggets that people that are inside of the industry or inside of that, school of thought might have missed out on. And that's where you can get some really great innovation. But it goes back to kind of to your point, Dad, not coming in like the, young whippersnapper with the degree saying, I know everything here. It's, hey, I don't know crap. You know a lot. Here's my idea. Let's talk through this. What's working, what's not working, and being able to have that kind of an honest conversation there.
Absolutely. Well, and for me, I think I gained some of that perspective. I graduated back in the 90s, so that'll tell you my age. But with that being said, I had the opportunity to go to college, and some things happened where I did not get to stay in college. So 10 years go by. I've met my wife, and she now encourages me to go to college. So now I go to college. I realize it's not as hard as I made it out to be, because I've had the school of hard knocks. I've worked for people. I've seen some things. I've gotten an education from the school of hard knocks. So now being in college, I have this perspective that I would not have had if I would have come straight out of high school, which allowed me to then parlay that directly into my master's degrees, which I found easier because it was something that was highly focused in what I wanted to do, because now I'm getting better education in what I find value in and where I think I can take that value to help my friends, my colleagues, my network. And for me, being, I'd like to call it, a blue collar down in the dirt, digging ditches, to a high level executive, with some companies, and seeing it from all sides, you can see how things are built and torn down. And I've had good managers and bad managers. And when you look at a pyramid, some people say that's the structure. I've seen other pyramids where they're flipped upside down, say this is the structure. So with that, that's given me that humility to go in and learn. Like, yes, I've been an energy guy for a long time. That's where I've really developed my name, my voice is in the energy space. But there are so many people that know way more about energy, but it's very specific to a certain segment of the energy market where I have to go and lean on them to be that. But now I'm assimilating my knowledge with their knowledge, and I'm taking my influence and leveraging it with their influence and bringing forth change that other people have not seen, which inherently is allowing us to move and get momentum for the clients that we're trying to service. Because I think in the energy space, it's about creating a better environment for our children. Now, we may not all be driving hybrids and eating nothing but kale, but
kale grown by aquaponics. Don't forget that.
Yeah. But, like for me as an individual, if I can say that I saved my book of business, several $1 million in a calendar year, that's substantial just on their energy cost. So when you look at that on a grand scale, and then you look at that and times that by my book of business or my network and how they're impacting this stuff, you can truly see change happening. But I think as an entrepreneur, we get so focused and can get so isolated on our own little bubble and not, parlay our relationships to really gain momentum. And again, that's my opinion. And maybe someone will resonate with that and say, heck yeah. But other people may say, heck no.
Well, you know what? I was just going to say, I'm stretching a little bit, but I'm going to have some fun with this segue because watch this, Camden. I almost sent you a chat message on this one because of the age of your boys, you're also a T-ball coach. And I feel like you just put the ball on the tee for me to ask you what your purpose is. Because I hear this bigger picture than the business. And I think to me, that's the secret to enjoyment and what you're doing and who you are is understanding what's your purpose. And if you don't mind, I would love to hear in a reflection of what it was when you kind of started and what it is now. Cause I'm pretty sure if I remember right, it's changed just a little bit in last few years.
Yeah. So for me, you and I, Otis, we belong to an organization. That's how we became friends. And I'm deeply honored and humbled by the relationship that we have. But when we first connected, I always identified and I said, I'm the energy guy. There's nothing I do better than energy. And that was my identity. That was, my sole mission in life was to be the energy guy because I love my father. He's my hero. And if nothing else comes out of that, I want that to be echoed and spawned across every platform and to get back to my dad because, that's the biggest thing for me. And maybe one day my kids will say the same about me. But when I really started peeling back the layers of the onion and looking at it as a more holistic view, I've been able to help businesses go from $0 in revenue to multi-million-dollar revenue in less than 3 years. I haven't done it in every business I've been at, but I've done it a couple times. But it's never been me. It's been a part of a team. So, but in everything I've done, I've been able to connect people. So in the energy space, I was able to connect my suppliers with my buyers. And I was then able to listen and understand where a problem may lie and then say, humbly, I can help you or I cannot help you. But if I cannot help you, here's where to go. And because of that humility, I was able to say where I cannot help people, here's where you need to go. People now resonated with me more because they know when I said it's not about the almighty dollar, it's about me working for other people and making sure I'm facilitating solutions. It allowed me to step back and change my vision. And I'm not going to read it off verbatim, but my LinkedIn says, my greatest network I bring my skills, my talents, and my network to bring value to other people. And for me, and I love it because of people that work in the 9-to-5 jobs that have the grind, they don't understand what I do. But for me, I truly believe that my skill is connecting people at a very high level. And it's not connecting high level people, because that's one thing, but connecting people at a high level and seeing the value that each person has to bring to an opportunity. And if I'm able to monetize that relationship by having an open and fair conversation and not creating an unfair exchange and trying to exceed the value for other people, then it allows me an opportunity to parlay that into a business that inherently takes care of myself, my family, my vision, to connect people, and then get my voice out there and try to be that humble connector, as opposed to a Goliath, egotistical, I'll let you fill in the blanks.
You can substitute SOB if you'd like to.
Yeah, we can say SOB. That's a good one.
Well, it's interesting. So, you were saying that originally the identity was the energy guy. Now I'm having a little fun with this, but going from the energy guy to the guy, because you're the guy who sets you up with people. You always got to have that guy in your network. And I love that. But, as you kind of went through this little bit of a realization, I don't know if it was, a true epiphany moment or if this was a slow thing. How did you deal with a loss of identity from the energy guy? Because you're not the energy guy anymore. Now you're the guy.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with that? Was that a tough transition?
I don't really view it as a tough transition. I think it was just, again, going through the layers of peeling back the onion and truly getting a better grasp of who I am and how I truly bring value to people. That was not hard, but it allowed me to better formulate the elevator pitch of what I do and how I'm trying to get you to partner with my company or companies. So it now, because that's been more polished, having a rough cut gem and now getting it to the nice ruby, sapphire, whatever you want it to be, it now the time saving process of introductions and stuff like that there is a lot easier. So if I'm in front of mine and having a conversation with someone, I can say this, this, and this, but I can't be there all the time. But if I can be a positive person, be humble, and people are talking about me, they can say, hey, here's what you need to know about Matt. Because again, that's marketing for me on a whole nother level, because my network is now talking about me and saying, hey, we're not sure exactly what's going on, but he's been successful and he's really good at connecting. And he's done these things. Maybe we can help you here.
This episode is brought to you by Tribe and Purpose. If you're a college athlete who just hung up the cleats and you're looking to make an impact as an entrepreneur, then Next is Best by Know Your Tribe is perfect for you. Get a clear sense of purpose and a path to success so that you can make a bigger impact and make this next chapter of your life the best one yet. Learn more today at findyourpurpose.coach. Now let's get back to the show.
And that for me is priceless.
I love almost a demonstration of that is I hate to say it, like I can't, my vocab is diminishing apparently, because I can't come up with a fancy way of saying it. But I know what you were doing with ProCents, and I know what you're doing, what you've just started. As a matter of fact, those of you watching on the YouTube, the picture behind Matt is a reminder. Yep. Completely different area. So that's a great example. I mean, just walk us through a little bit of that story of how you went from, truthfully, like you said, the energy guy to now you're doing medical research, if I remember right. Is that right?
Well, medical lab testing. So
yes, there. Thank you.
So yeah, I am an entrepreneur and I have the two companies. I have ProCents and Arcor. That's where my passion lies. That's where, any additional revenue I have, I go to put into that to, build that. I haven't taken a salary from those, but in that being said, because I haven't taken a salary, I do have a full-time employee who helps me run stuff and help me grow ProCents 50% from June to October, and then another 50% from last quarter of the year. So I've got to make sure I take care of him. But since I do have necessities and a family to take care of, a friend of mine, a mentor, has helped me identify starting two businesses, for tax reasons. I'm not a CPA, but for those that are listening, talk with your CPA if you're going to open a business or be an entrepreneur about opening two and the tax ramifications to doing that. Because opening a business, it's only about $150. And also, if you're talking to investors, if you don't have your tax or your business license already set up, they don't view you as fully invested because you haven't made that initial investment to get forward. But I had the opportunity because I have been successful in connecting people and bringing value to businesses and creating some SOPs and seeing things in a different light. I was like, man, this is an opportunity to learn something. Again, always learning to, gain freedom to go into the medical space, which is a huge shift, big change, because it's not a buyer seller transaction. I wish it was. It'd make things a whole lot easier. But in the medical field, it's a doctor ordering a test, patient getting the test, insurance deciding whether they want to pay for the test. Because the doctor doesn't pay for the test, patient doesn't pay for the test. Now you got to figure out if insurance is going to pay for the test. So it creates a lot of legalities that you have to look at, but it's been fun. And for me, in my time here, it's been very nice for me to see the benefits in the genetics testing that we do for early childhood cancer detection, whether it be in children or young adolescents, to see if they're predisposed to cancer. We also do a genetic test that allows people to see how they metabolize medicines, because a lot of people take medicine. And it tells, it gives a doctor a blueprint of how you metabolize at a very specific level, as opposed to the blanket statements. And then it's given me a inside track to this little virus that's going around called COVID or something.
The Rona is how we refer to it on this show, because
I don't want to
capital letters.
I don't want there to be a little box showing up later, like fact check. But with all those things, it's given me insight. But the great thing about it is I had a fear from going from blue collar energy guys to working with doctors. You know what? I found out they both went to school. One went to a school of hard knocks and a trade school. The other one went and acquired a lot of debt, but has done well and dedicated a lot of time. But both of them have a problem that needs to be solved. Both of them have complex issues that they're trying to work through, whether it be supply chain, hiring of the right people. It's always the same problem. And luckily for me, my network has only gotten bigger, because I was only, for a while, my LinkedIn looked like the who's who in the energy space. Now my LinkedIn is, the who's who in the medical space, pharmaceutical space, cardiologists, oncologists, neurologists. So it's nice that I can now fundamentally have a conversation with these people to figure out what's going on in their world and figure out if I can provide a solution or just an outside opinion that may allow them to look at it in a different light, to give them a different perspective. Because if we're able to change a perspective on a problem, might allow us to gain better insights of how we come to a solution, which has been truly one of the most remarkable things for me. I don't know, how long I will be here. I hope to be here for a while. But it is one of the things that I absolutely love in seeing the commonality of finding a problem and looking at it from a different viewpoint. Because I like to say, if you've been in a business for 5 years, you're probably the worst person to ask when writing a training manual, because you have now forgotten everything that you learned. Now you just know what you know. You forgot the onboarding, putting your name, date, and birth, your IEN number, your tax ID number, your tax certificate. You forgot the basic bare bone necessities of a foundational business. But when you're able to remove yourself, and I'd like to still say I'm the infant in this. I like to say I'm the infant in a lot of things. I can bring insights. And if I need to show up and be the expert, I'll show up and be the expert. But if I can show up and look at it like a fifth grader would, because as children, they ask us questions, and I'm like, those questions allow us to think, oh my God, really? I didn't think about it that way, because we're too close to it. But when we're able to get outside the box and look at it, man, the opportunities are boundless. So,
I like to think about that, thinking like a child and how it's just all about different perspective. But I think the real, like, more measurable mechanism for things I've read on that, because I think it's an interesting area, because kids, they're pretty creative, but adults can be creative too. But the thing that kids have that most adults lose is the ability to put yourself out there and feel okay being stupid for a little bit and feel okay like that. Because at some point, for some people it's 16, some people it's 20, whatever age it is, you raise your hand, ask that stupid question, the class laughs, and you go, oh, wow, I'm not doing that again. And you just lock down. And the best thing you can do sometimes is ask those stupid questions, because they're usually not that stupid, as silly as that always sounds. I know it's one of those oxymoronic phrases, but they're really not that stupid usually. And even if they are, if you can have a real dialogue around where the conversation came from, why it's stupid and that kind of thing, you could probably still get a lot of knowledge out of that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Unless you're in, I wish I could remember which school it was, but unless you were in that Army class that I was in, and the instructor says, there's no stupid questions, and somebody asks one, and he goes, yep, there are stupid questions. So yeah, because, well, I don't want to go down that hole, but pay attention in class, kids. Let's just say that there's your lesson for the day. Matt, I want to know how you got the guy running ProCents, which I love that story, but I want to take a step up a couple of levels on the bigger picture. How do you find, because a lot of our listeners have this same question, how do you find quality people to put them on your team and keep?
Well, I will say that I found him just because he was in my network of friends. I'd met this gentleman probably 8 years prior. He was working for a competitor. When I was working for a large supplier, he was working for another supplier. We went up against each other, but our products were not in the same field. So I would recommend him and he would recommend me. And this trust became apparent between each other. And then I watched his career, he watched mine. And I knew that he could do more. And I knew his skill sets were where mine were lacking. And one of my skill sets I have to work on a daily basis is being able to write stuff down. Yes, I'm in a place where, creating SOPs, but it's a challenge. I still have to, take time, carve out times of my day to make sure I'm putting that in process. But in my own business, I wasn't doing it. But knowing that he could be the man to take my ideas, my vision that I'm putting out there, put it down on paper so it can be digested, it can be seen by a variety of different people on whether you're a buyer or seller, was something I needed. And then also because I'm on the East Coast, he's on the West Coast. It's not to say we have different political views or religious views or anything like that there. But when you live in two different parts of the country, you see things differently because, of what's around you. So it allowed me the opportunity, one, to gain 3 hours of my, working day, because he works 3 hours past where I work. But it allowed, I always ask people to poke holes in my plans, because the more holes I can have poked in the plans I have moving forward, and if they are something that need to be fixed or just something that need to be cut out of the plan altogether, really allow me to have, the best laid plan. but I'd rather have those holes poked in as quickly as possible. And he's not one that thinks I'm all that. He thinks I'm just another guy, just like I think everyone else is just another guy. And he tells me that. We had a call yesterday. It was quite funny, the way we greet each other. But regardless.
No, stop. You can't skip over that, dude. You got to tell us what?
So every time he gets on, he's like, man, it's like, you look prettier and prettier because you just keep shaving, you know. He's like, keep getting prettier. I may have to date you. So, I mean, and then I'm like, well, you keep getting fatter and balder. So may have to ask soon. I'm going to say no. I mean, it's just guy talk. I mean, and that's,
yeah.
But, but when you can look at each other and not be fearful and have a real conversation, that's where things happen. I think so many people want to be brought to the table because they say yes. I want people at my table because they say no and they challenge what my thoughts are. It's not that I want to be challenged everywhere I go and everything I do, but if I can be challenged in the right ways, I'm only going to grow. People that fear challenge will never grow. And that, and I feared that for a long time. But, I was also the person that my mom said at an early age, I should have been an attorney because I love to argue. But also in that same regard, that fight mentality, as I got older, I realized I wasn't arguing. I was asking questions, and people, they got offended because they didn't know the answer, but they were in a position of authority. So I'd rather have people around me at the table that are going to challenge my authority, because that means I'm going to grow. And that means my company is going to be better for it. And the company does not survive unless I have people that buy into it and we're bringing value too. So, for me, that's the key for me. But he's just a good, hardworking guy that's driven. He got his MBA late in his years, like I did. So there's some commonalities, but there's also differences. But it brings the best out, I think, in both of us.
That's great, man. And I think the core is the core values are similar, and that's what brings it together. And then you did the matchup of, well, he's good at this and I'm good at that. Those are complementary, and that's a great way to add in a teammate, as opposed to bringing in a mini me, a yes man, whatever you want to call it. Because if you're doing that, then you never see the known unknowns, and you definitely will never be prepared for the unknown unknowns, which is in life and in business, you got to be ready for both of those.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm boy. What did I learn? And that's where I'm struggling, because, man, we didn't grow up in the same part of the country, but the culture, you talk about that East Coast, West Coast culture. Well, Georgia and Texas, not real close, but there's a lot of similarities in some of the things you said. I'm like, yeah, okay, yep. And now that I've fumbled around, I was going to look back at my notes.
Quit stalling.
I know. Oh, I found it. Oh, hey, if anybody ever wants to know how I do this, I don't know. No. I take notes, I write things down, and then I forget what the heck I wrote down. Where was that one I said, man, that was a good one. And so when I do those pauses, you know what I'm doing? I'm looking down at my notes trying to find that thing I said I'd learned. And the one I liked was when you were talking about why you became an entrepreneur. And it's so true, but there's so many, you don't have to own your own business. It goes back to that entrepreneur spirit. You don't have to own your own business to do this, to have this attitude, but it's to be in control of your own outcomes. And yes, you can do that by starting a business, but you know what? You can do that right now working for Acme Bricks. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that you can do it in that same sense. So own your own outcome. Own that.
Yeah.
Camden, what'd you learn?
Matt, you said this earlier. I loved it. It was always learning to gain freedom. I think that there is probably a Sun Tzu or an Aristotle or somebody who said that at some point that I've read it, but gosh, you put that in plain English so much better. And I love that. Always learning to gain freedom. That's always so funny. That's the thing about paraphrasing quotes and stuff. As much as it always seems odd when you paraphrase things, you got to update the language, because I ain't going to remember that quote until I heard the way you said it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and for me, that's the perspective. We hear things 100 times and it's the exact same thing, just reworded, but you hear it one time, it sticks with you because it's the perspective that you needed to hear at that time that allowed it to imprint on your brain.
The change of voice. I'm sorry, I got to get the quick story in there. I got a guy I coach little kids rugby with out here in Tucson. And for the men's team, he wants me to come out and do some coaching. And we're like, oh yeah, what do you want to work on? And we kind of go through these things. And he basically outlined what he wanted me to come coach. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Do you not? And he said, no, I've said this 100 times. They just don't listen to me. And I need you to come and say it again. So they go, gosh, that kid's smart. I should do that next time I play the game. And because all it is just for whatever reason, that different voice, and it just resonates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt, I'm not going to make the Miss Suzanne comment that would get me in trouble at this point. So I'm going to stay in the flow. Matt, what'd you learn, man?
Well, I think for me, Camden said it best. And it's, when do you stop fearing asking the stupid question? And I think, and I'm going to throw an answer out there just for people, that are struggling to find one. So I think back, people stop fearing asking the stupid question on their first job interview.
Oof, that's a heck of an answer.
And the reason I say that is because of the conversation that we had. Is as an entrepreneur, you may not be an entrepreneur and open your own business, but you can be an entrepreneur and own your output within a business. Mm-hmm. And if you are wanting to bring change within an environment, you have to ask the hiring manager, do I have the freedom to bring change that's going to better the business? Because the second you get shackled down, you start, there's a cage that gets built around you. There's a wall that gets built around you, and it hinders everything. Because as children, we talked about, children ask questions and they're always bringing stuff, and they practice asking questions. We stop asking questions at some point. And I think it's when we have our first interview, because we want to be accepted as opposed to respected.
Yeah, who was it?
You and I are both just sitting here pondering that one.
Well, no, I'm
accepted.
Oh, shoot!
Wow.
It's a paraphrase from Dr. King. And for those of you who are keeping track on your calendar, this podcast is recorded the day after Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and Dr. King was in. I'm not going to go too far because I can't remember which speech it was, but talked about the day that we can look at people and judge people based on their character and not the color of their skin. Mm-hmm. There we go. Oh man, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Could fact check me on that one. I think that was from the "I Have a Dream" speech, if I remember right.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So either way, I know it was Dr. King that said that, and it's a pretty powerful thing to think about. Be judged on your character. Mm-hmm. Think about it that way. Go through life with that drive, being judged on your character. I'm trying not to get too much soapboxy. I usually don't on the podcast, but Matt, you just bring it out in me, man.
Sorry.
Well, I want to add on there, and maybe we could talk on this just a little bit more as we're wrapping up. Thinking the accepted versus respected. I think that we all have this idea, especially if you're talking about that first job interview type of setting, that if you don't know something, you're no longer going to be respected inside the room. You're no longer going to be able to contribute meaningfully into that conversation. And that's kind of just like a flawed way of looking at respect, and sets you up for failure inside of those settings. And I think that's the value of, the other side of that, the way you put it, Matt, of accepted, is accepting, one, understanding yourself, your own knowledge, and what, the shortcomings that you have, your weaknesses, your strengths, and then working in an environment where other people are accepting that. Because it makes me think too, and I don't know who exactly said this, Dad. I know it's a Stoic quote, but that you can never, if you always expect people to be who they are, you'll never be disappointed. The same thing goes for yourself. It's just accepting that people are who they are, and that knowledge is what they have, and the knowledge they don't have is the knowledge they don't have. That's all okay. And just accepting them as they are is the most important thing. And if you can get your team to do that, you're going to go places, because great ideas are going to come out of that acceptance of everyone inside the group.
Yeah. Well, and the thing for me is, like, there was a conversation I had yesterday with a group of people. Someone brought up the Love Languages book. And it was one of the things that was very instrumental in my life, because when I went through premarital counseling, I found that my love language is words of affirmation. So I've always really tried to go out of my way to seek being accepted. But if I'm accepted, people don't remember me. People don't talk about me. But if I'm respected, people talk about me. People remember me. And you want to have both, but you got to figure out, at what level you want to be. Do you want to be accepted as a friend, or do you want to be respected as an expert? You want to be accepted as someone who's trustworthy, or do you want to be respected as someone that's honorable? So in all these different things, it's a fine line. My wife joked with me that day. I walked in, we're getting ready for a wedding. I said, well, I'm going to be the best looking guy there. She goes, cocky much? I said, no, confident. So it's a fine line. But, between the exception of being accepted and respected, I can say I respect certain people and what they've done. I can respect, I'm going to say a name, Bill Gates. I respect him and what he's done. Do I accept him as maybe not. Mm-hmm. And I could do that with a variety of people, but I know the same thing could be done with me. So again, that's one of the things as you go through life and the older you get, and I think it's one of those things that allows me to better facilitate my relationships and the conversations I have.
Well, I've read the Love Languages book, and I would like to say, Matt, that you did a great job today, and I'm very proud of you. And I would like to thank you for coming on to the show. I'm just making sure that he gets the words of affirmation. I'm trying to be helpful.
Well, you stole my line. I was going for that. I was gunning for it, but that was just like that was the easy.
Slow it down, old man.
Set you up. That was more. That wasn't just the tee ball on the tee. That was here. Let me hold the bat for you, Camden, and hit it with you. Good stuff, man. Hey, Matt, man, this has been great. Put him on the list of returners. How can folks get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about those things you got going on and those principles that you're leading towards?
I would say the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. So it's Matt Russell. And then after my name, just put in MBA, and then you'll find some other characters that or certifications I got within the energy field or energy space. Is the best way to find me. I love to connect with people. I love to interact with people. I love to gain insights from people and perspectives, because the more I know, the more freedom I have.
Love it, man. That's a great roundout, man. The more I know, the more freedom I have. Thank you for that, Matt. Thank you for your time today. Good talking to you. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our guest, Matt Russell, for joining us today, and our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your purpose, find your tribe. You can check out recent episodes of the Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamanotisshow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next week.